Oh boy, it's a big fat stinky one, okay? It's a big dumpy one, so
What?
boys and one woman that's probably watching this,
No, no,
get
no,
ready.
no.
Get ready, because this is a long topic.
Yeah. Oh fuck,
But
dude, guys. I know you can't see it, but it's over. It's over a page on the script.
yeah.
Oh, here we
So
fucking go. All right, buckle up, everybody, because we're
get
talking
ready.
about
The Daily Wire versus Steven Crowder. Now, I'm sure everyone's aware of the Daily Wire, but if you aren't,
Ben versus Steven, Shapiro versus Crowder. Here
yeah.
we fucking go.
The Daily Wire, it was founded by Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring. I think that's common knowledge, but it's always a good idea to
Yeah,
say that.
just in case.
A little
Yeah,
refresher, you know?
I don't think we've ever talked about Steven Crowder on this podcast, but he is a popular conservative activist.
No, we have, right?
I mean, we might have. I don't know.
Maybe
I
we've
don't
talked about
remember.
a Louder with Crowder episode before. I don't know.
Yeah, but regardless, he's a big YouTuber. He's got over
You
6
you know
million
what? I'm
subs.
just gonna say this. All right, he's the change my mind guy.
He is the change my mind guy. He's that guy in the meme where he's sitting on that chair and there's a table that says change my mind
Yeah,
and people input like their own text message or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, he's
exactly.
that guy.
He's that guy.
Um,
He made an entire series about basically just like getting leftists or college students or whoever to change his mind on a hot button issue, and almost all the time it would devolve into a screaming match because I mean, come on, of course it would. And that was how he basically became relevant, was just he was almost kind of like a reaction guy, but it's even worse because he didn't have to do anything. He just sat there with a sign and just like attracted like brain dead lefties just come and shout at him.
yeah.
When you
Um,
think about it, it was really smart.
yeah, Crowder is there's no there's no debate on Crowder's influence on not only conservative media but as the general populace as a whole, right? He's done great work for everyone's consumption. But his accomplishments don't end with 6 million on YouTube. He's also got a good million on Rumble, which is quite impressive because Rumble is not really
Rumble.
a
Well,
platform that's really a competitor to
watch
YouTube.
Sons of
But
Liberty on Rumble, gamers.
yeah, by the way, shout out to our Rumble. We were there, and I think we have a couple episodes there, so go ahead and watch those. But essentially, if you guys didn't know, Steven Crowder, he kind of had a distributor behind him, and that distributor was The Blaze, a popular conservative network that writes articles and has their own website and whatnot. It's kind of like a competitor to the Daily Wire, but the Daily Wire is more focused on media, while the Blaze is more focused on, I guess, traditional sources of information like articles and things like that.
Got it.
So, anyways, that was a bit of a mouthful there.
So they're essentially competitors in the conservative YouTube news anchor kind of space.
Right, but it's not really relevant for this conversation because although they are competitors, the Daily Wire and the Blaze they do kind of peacefully coexist and they have mutual respect for another.
Right.
The issue that comes into play is Steven Crowder and the Daily Wire. So the Daily Wire got word that Steven Crowder was about to leave his deal with the Blaze, and as they are doing, they've been catching a lot of W's with Jordan Peterson, Candace Owens, and Brett Cooper. Right,
Yeah.
those are a couple major talent acquisitions they made. They were thinking that they could do a talent acquisition for Steven Crowder, and they sent him a non-binding term sheet. Now, if you guys don't know, non-binding term sheet is different from a contract. A non-binding term sheet is basically, um, it's kind of a draft of what the contract might look like.
Yeah.
So Jeremy Boring in his video that we'll later talk about, he said it was a conversation starter. That's all he was aiming to do with that sheet.
Yeah.
Now Crowder, he made a video saying that the non-binding term sheet was very horrible. Um, it was not done in a fair manner. And I'll read you guys a couple of bullet points to what his whole video was about, and then we'll go step by step and talk about them.
Bad.
So Crowder believes that the Daily Wire wants to sign him to an unfair contract for reasons as the Daily Wire. Well, this is not really an unfair reason. in terms of what most people would view. But Steven Crowder does believe it. The Daily Wire offered him a $50 million payout over 4 years and a possible 2 year renewal that would pay him $25 million. No, Crowder, I think, wants a little bit more than 50 million. But that wasn't in the original non-binding term sheet because it was just a draft. But that's what was offered, $50 million
Mm-hmm.
over 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot. Let's be honest. That's a fuckload of money.
Yeah.
The Daily Wire in 2021 got $100 million worth of revenue, so they are putting a big amount of investment on this guy.
Yeah, but you know, maybe Crowder thinks he's just better than that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's your decision whether you take the deal, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, he goes on with this video. He says that he dislikes that in the binding term sheet he would have to upload 192 shows a year. Now that sounds like a
Ooh.
lot, but if you really think about it, I mean,
Well,
that's only
yeah.
that's only 4 shows a week, especially if you're being paid $50 million. I mean, you know, you can we especially in our podcast, right? We have discussions about how often we should upload, how much is too much, right?
Yeah.
Quality over quantity, things like
Yeah, and
that.
how much, maybe is not enough. Like, we,
Hmm.
we want to keep some semblance of activity. So you guys know we haven't, been perhaps tapped on the shoulder by the Clinton Foundation. Which, by
Right,
the way,
exactly.
just for the record, none of us are suicidal. We are not going to kill ourselves. If we die, you know why.
Correct.
Anyways.
So, I'm just gonna go out and say this. If I was Steven Crowder, I'd be very grateful because it's only 4 shows a week, and he gets 4 weeks of vacation time, meaning that he really only needs to work Monday through Thursday, and then he has a 3-day weekend.
Yeah, but keep in mind also, that would be um every week consistently every year. So realistically, it'd probably like pan out more like 5 days a week, which is standard. Is normal. Realistically, that does seem very reasonable and consistent for the amount of money that he's getting paid. But that's our point of view.
Right.
Just empathize for a second. Put yourself in the shoes of Crowder. Maybe you look at that and you're thinking, I could get more for my work, my talent. Because the other thing is, a lot of Crowder's videos are, first of all, they're long, but the other thing to consider is that they're usually very in depth and they're in person. So I can definitely see that, either he would have to significantly downgrade his content, make it shorter, make it probably a little easier to, complete, to make it essentially what is one a day with weekends, right? Which maybe if that happens, the Daily Wire wouldn't exactly like that, and that might cause even more problems. But the second thing to consider is just simply that, you know, maybe it would be a good deal to someone like us in the Sons of Liberty channel, where we get no bitches and no money, but someone like Steven Crowder, who is incredibly successful, thinks he might be able to get a better deal somewhere else. We just have no perspective.
Right. I'm just gonna say this. Even like I acknowledge that could be true, I would still be grateful for the offer.
Oh,
I
I
think
would too. Are
he
you kidding? That would be
now
amazing.
let me mention this. 192 days. If you divide 365 days, which is I think average, right, for the years, or 364, if you divide 365 by 2, you get like 182.
Yeah.
So he has to upload basically half of the year, which is pretty good. Um, and he doesn't like that, the 192 show requirement. We talked about it, how it might be different for him, but he goes into the specific point where he has concerns where if he gets hit by a bus, he can't upload episodes for obvious reasons, right? He's
Because he's
disabled.
been hit by a bus. Yeah, okay. That's kind of a weird example. I feel like
Right.
every job should come with the asterisk that, maybe you get some time off if you get hit by a bus.
Right, but he only needs to upload 192 episodes. So it's like, if you get hit by a bus and you survive, you're probably going to recover, but that's besides the point. I think that was kind of a moot argument, but whatever.
Yeah. Honestly, it just kind of seems like cope. I think he's afraid of saying the truth, which is he thinks he can get a better deal somewhere else. Even though this deal is very good, he thinks that he's, hot shit enough to be able to get a better deal. And hey, more power to him, right? But, he should be honest about that. Instead of being
Right.
like, but what if I get hit by a bus? Like, what?
And the point he was actually making, there's a kind of a separate point to if he gets hit by a bus, the Daily Wire. Well, the Daily Wire says in the binding sheet that if he doesn't meet certain requirements for quarters because it's quarterly, he will be penalized, financially penalized. Meaning, since the $50 million will be paid out monthly, they'll subtract however much they value the episode. I think it was like 100K an episode. So if he doesn't upload, if he misses the requirement by one episode, they subtract 100K from his payout that month. Which, in my opinion, is kind of fair, right? Think about it. They are paying you to produce a specific amount of episodes. If you don't produce that amount of episodes, well, why should they pay you for the work you haven't done?
Right.
Makes sense to me,
I
but I guess
mean,
he didn't like that.
yeah, I mean, you could also consider that perhaps, um, that kind of penalty, per lost episode is maybe a little harsh. Again, I wouldn't know.
Yeah. But
I
yet again, this
I
is a
I
binding
think
sheet.
I think that you know if Crowder was maybe a little more honest about it, he probably could have some form of an argument as to why this deal just wasn't working out for him. But fundamentally, I do think that the deal wasn't being unreasonable. It's certainly within conversation limits, especially considering it was a draft and not the full version of the contract. And I think Crowder's just kind of malding and thinking that, maybe if he can make this into a huge stink, that either A, the Daily Wire will give him a significantly buffed contract, basically as just leverage to just get him to shut up. Or B, a better competitor will pick him up and give him a better deal. This really just does seem like I can't believe I'm saying this, but kind of a grift.
Yeah, so this is like part one, and we're only halfway through it.
Oh my
So
god, it never ends.
yeah, yeah.
All right,
So
here we go.
this another thing he didn't like was the fact that if the content he would produce at the Daily Wire, it would still be owned by the Daily Wire after his contract is over. Which I mean, in my opinion, it's not ideal, but you kind of understand why they're doing that, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, in this contract, the episodes he would produce every day, right, or every 4 days a week, those episodes they would be still owned by him because he would bear the production cost. What they're talking about in this contract is the documentaries they're making with the talent. So you know how Matt Walsh made What Is a Woman?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're saying that if he makes a documentary like that, they would own the rights to that after he's done with the contract.
I don't see how that's unreasonable.
I don't think that's unreasonable at all because they would bear all the responsibility, they would bear all the camera equipment, they would bear
Right.
all the interviews,
It's
all
it's
the time
not
management.
just Crowder's work.
Yeah.
There's other people involved in making it happen, and all those people came from the Daily Wire. So yeah, no, that makes sense.
That's not unreasonable in my opinion. What
Absolutely.
could be, in my opinion, is a little unreasonable is the fact that Crowder has to do 5 ad reads in each episode.
Oh,
That's
okay.
bad.
No. This is an important point to talk. This is sort of like a general thing with the Daily Wire. I don't know if any of you epic gamers out there watching the Sons of Liberty podcast probably do have ever seen an episode of the Ben Shapiro Show, but oh my god,
It's loaded with ads.
this man, like, do I make the Jewish joke? No, I won't make the Jewish joke. No, but seriously, there are so many fucking like ads, and I'm not talking like just YouTube ads because I got YouTube Premium. I don't gotta see that shit, right? That's a skill issue. But seriously, like, even besides that, just the amount of product placement, and it's long. It's like a solid like 3+ minutes of just pure shilling per product. And it can happen multiple times. It does happen multiple times every single episode. Now, granted, the episodes are like an hour long each, but seriously, imagine if you were watching Sons of Liberty or you were listening to Sons of Liberty, right? And we were like, like 9 minutes into the video. We're like, before we get started, have you ever heard of men? Oh, I cannot say that because that would be burning bridges. Have you ever heard of Ex- Have you ever heard of Everybody who heard that, who heard the first syllable, knew what I was talking about. And if you didn't, then you're just boomers who haven't
Him
watched like
calling
enough
them out.
YouTube videos. But yeah, basically, no, seriously, watch anything Ben Shapiro has ever made. It is filled to the brim with ads. I don't know why, but he does a lot of like ad reads for like gold companies, which
Oh yeah,
you
Birch
know,
Golds.
yeah, which you think would be like kind of out of place, and then you realize, oh wait, like it's attracting, conservatives and libertarians who don't believe in the dollar, and they believe they want the gold standard back, which by the way, based, and it's like, oh, that makes sense actually.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
gold standard,
I'm gonna be
FTW.
real. It's unfortunate, right, that he'd have to do 5 ad reads, but if that's the Daily Wire's business model, that's their business model. So
It does just kind of seem like a nitpick. The other thing to
yeah,
consider is that all of those ad reads are taking up time, taking up time in the video,
correct.
which means less work that Crowder has to do, and you know, I don't think that Steven Crowder is the guy to be like, I'm not gonna sell out. Like what?
No, he actually said that. He's like, at most, I'll do 1 ad per video, which is like, I mean, that's better than 5 for sure. But
Yeah,
if that's their model and they're paying you 50 million, I mean, concessions can be made, I suppose.
I think like that would be very easy to settle on a solid compromise of 3 a video.
Yeah,
One
and
153, right? Would that be so bad?
yeah. So I don't. So the Daily Wire actually made this point in their response video, but there's one more point that I think is important to mention, which I think is it's one that I am unsure about in
All
terms
right,
of where I stand.
all right.
And that is Crowder doesn't like that he could be financially penalized, meaning you know, the monthly payout he gets could be subtracted
Yeah.
if any sponsors are drove away from his content due to controversy,
Oh,
or if he's
yikes.
banned off platforms like YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc.
Okay, now that's tricky because on
Right.
one hand, right, it does make sense.
Correct.
Like all you have to do is follow the money. All of that stuff is, related to how they make their money, and if that gets hit, then it does kind of make sense on some level that Crowder should have to face at least some of that, especially if he's the root cause. But here's the hiccup. That means that him being quote unquote deplatformed now is a direct line to his funding that anybody who disagrees with him politically can use, and it probably has used in the past to other people, to sabotage their freedom of speech, which obviously the Daily Wire would not want, because that's
Yeah.
literally the fucking point of the Daily Wire.
Correct. No,
I
I
don't
think
think Ben Shapiro would support business practices that allow the leftist that he owns with facts and logic to basically be able to shut up anybody who disagrees with their hegemony.
no, I think there are kind of exceptions to this rule because in Jeremy Boring's response video, I think he did mention that if a sponsor got drove away, they would try to work with Crowder because if you don't know, Harry's Razors, I think someone complained on Twitter with one follower that they were being advertised on Ben Shapiro's show, and so what the Daily Wire is, they launched Jeremy's Razors, as like like a competitor to Harry's Razors. Like you get it because his name's Jeremy Boring. It's called Jeremy's Razors instead of Harry's Razors. So there could be,
Lamau.
yeah, there could be, I think, those exceptions. So I think that was more. I think the Daily Wire is trying to get more leverage out of Crowder because
Yeah.
it seems like they can make their own products in due time, and they could really not be that affected. But the being banned off platforms and then the money stopping, it's unfortunate because, in a sense, I kind of am an advocate for um not caring about what big tech wants you to think and say online. I think you should speak what you want to say, but there are certain rules and parameters you must conform
And
to if you
but
want to
there's
stay on these
another thing.
platforms.
There's another thing that I want to like specifically highlight for the freedom of speech argument. This is specifically going to be political videos on the Daily Wire.
Well, this is let me clarify. This is going to be YouTube videos
Yeah,
and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So
yeah,
if he says something that would upset the people that are in charge of those organizations,
yeah.
and his stuff gets banned off there, they would have to cut. I think it was like 15% for Spotify, 20 for Apple Podcasts, 20 for YouTube, and I think it was like 10% for Google Podcast or Amazon Podcast, whatever it was like that.
Lol, Google Podcasts. By the way, Sons of Liberty and Google Podcast. Go
Yeah,
take a listen.
good shout out. We're all on these platforms: YouTube, Apple Podcasts,
They
Spotify.
haven't found us yet. They haven't
Yeah.
found us yet.
It's even on Amazon Music. Can you believe that?
Yeah, and nobody uses that platform. So if you have an Alexa at home and you're like, man, do I want Alexa to listen to my conversation, or do I want Alexa to play me the Sons of Liberty? Well, guess what? You could tell her to play the Sons of Liberty.
Oh my god.
Anyways,
Bro,
so
if any of our dedicated loyal fans want to play a Sons of Liberty episode on their Alexa, record that and send it to at Sons of Lib 30. Please, I want to see that. That'd be really funny.
yeah, I'd be happy personally if that was
To clarify,
like that.
send it to us like on Twitter or Instagram or something. Not Instagram.
I think our at is just Sons of Liberty with the 3 at the end instead of the E. Like
The-
our normally how you spell it.
Yeah.
With no spaces, if anyone's interested. Anyways, it sucks, but you also have to understand if they're making this big investment into Steven Crowder and a big income source, goes away, how are they going to be expected to pay him? Right?
That is ultimately the paradox is
Right. It's an uncomfortable truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a right solution to this because, let's be honest, Steven Crowder, he's no fucking ninja, okay? Ninja, when he went to Mixer and he got like a guaranteed payday of like $20 or $30 million.
Yeah,
initially.
lol.
Like Ninja had like 20 some million subscribers on YouTube. He was the most followed Twitch person of all time. He was making videos with Drake. I mean, he was just in a different position than Steven Crowder. Let's be honest about this.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think that the circumstances are different. And Mixer, by the way, big fucking company. They're owned by Microsoft, so they had all that funding. So they could pay someone like Ninja, Shroud, and I don't even know who else.
I mean, to be fair, also to consider the political sort of misalignment angle for this whole Crowder situation is not to be understated. Ninja was for the most part pretty squeaky clean when it comes to the political stuff. So it would be very easy for a company like Microsoft to take him on. Whereas with Steven Crowder and Daily Wire, they're working with, a little less. Yeah.
And by the way, Microsoft is a $1 trillion company. The Daily Wire, I don't even think is a $1 billion company. So the funding is unequivocal. Yeah. Let's be honest here. But anyways, that was the gist of Steven Crowder's initial video. He made a second video, but the Daily Wire made a response video. Now, something I omitted...
Oh shit, beef?
Yeah, they made an hour response video.
The lore continues, everybody.
Something I omitted in Steven Crowder's initial video is that he did not mention the company name. But I'm sure when he says, that he's going to have to do 5 ads in between the videos, we all know who the company that is, or which company is reaching out to him, right? I mean, it's quite obvious. Everyone kind of figured it out pretty quickly. And the fact that the payout was very large, everyone kind of understood it was the Daily Wire, because they've been making these huge talent acquisitions recently, and they kind of do a lot of ad reads. Or at least that's what I kind of took away, and that's what Twitter kind of took away. Daily Wire made a response video. And they explain everything in full detail, ranging from the bills they have to pay, which includes their 250 employees, the marketing costs, the talent acquisitions, etc., etc., etc. This is why the clauses are in the non-binding term sheet, right? They're basically explaining the philosophy. They got bills to pay, so if Steven Crowder doesn't fulfill those his requirements, they're gonna have to cut funding. Obvious. Now, Jeremy Boring, the guy who was making the response video and the founder, was Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire. He said he was willing to pay Steven Crowder up to $75 million over the 4-year period. He was willing to have negotiations, reduce how many shows he needed to produce in a year, and reduce certain clauses. His main objective with the term sheet was just to get the conversation started. He said what was most likely to happen was he's probably going to increase the funding. The amount of days he needed to actually do the podcast was going to decrease. The fines that he would have to receive if he did something not in the company's interest would be reduced.
Kind of
And they would
seems
slowly,
like it all kind of worked out for Crowder.
yeah, I mean, it kind of seemed like it was working out for him. But something Jeremy Boring mentioned in the video is that he wanted somewhere closer to about $120 million. And once Jeremy Boring heard that figure, he said no because he doesn't have that type of money for Steven Crowder, nor does he think that Steven Crowder is worth that type of money. So
Bruh.
he said that they went their separate ways. It was very mutual. They've been friends for 10 years. So they thought they were going to go on their merry ways and continue their ongoing relationship.
Yeah.
But that did not happen. Okay. Steven Crowder, after he saw the Daily Wire's episode, he thought, you know what? I got to respond to their response video.
Oh no.
So Steven Crowder, this video is, by the way, garbage. I mean, I'm sorry to interject here, but there are a lot of there's a lot of hypocrisy and conflicting stories here. So he says that for him, he never cared about the money, right? He never cared if he was
Oh,
going to get
that's
paid.
bullshit.
Yeah,
I'm
like
sorry, that's bullshit.
let's be
I
honest,
never cared about the money. Come on now.
if you're complaining about the clauses in which your funding might be decreased from the $15 million payout because you might see something bad and sponsors might pull out, or a source of income will be pulled because you get
Dude, it's
banned.
a reasonable fear. But
Yeah,
like,
you don't have to say that. We understand that.
this is major cope.
Yeah, so I think that was a weak point.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, most things are about money. And by the way, being money centric, that's not a bad thing. A lot of leftists have this perception that
Well,
if you're a
specifically
business,
socialists, because it's the bread and butter or lack thereof of their ideology is,
right?
capitalist bad. But the truth is, right, at the end of the day, money is, money makes the world go round, all right? It's how we gauge, how much people are contributing to society and how we're contributing to one another, while also giving people, the freedom to live their life however they want, as long as they're, doing something that, other people consider to be valuable, and, they get paid for it. And that's the system. And for some reason, that was considered to be, like, greedy, which, I mean, yeah, there are ways to min-max money, and yeah, some of those ways are pretty shitty, but, like, therefore all of money is bad. Like, what?
Yeah, so if you are in a free market economy, by the way, this is Econ 101. If you are in a free market
Literally!
economy and you are optimizing the amount of money you can make through trade, if you engage in trade, you are telling yourself you are going to be in a better position than you otherwise would have been
Right.
if you did not engage in that trade. So trade is always a net
Oh, okay,
benefit to the
because
people
think about it
involved.
like this, right? If it was neutral, if it was the same as when you went in, why would you initiate it?
Right, there
And
is
if
no
it was
point.
worse, double so. Why would you initiate it? Why would you initiate trade if you think that it's going to be the same or worse than it would be if you just didn't? Because you're given a choice. That's the ultimate thing. Trade and economies, they're all about choice and the consequences of that choice. I think that's why the authoritarians don't like capitalism so much. It's because it's too many choices for all those people. All the lumpen proles that we have to keep down.
Right, and Steven Crowder in this response video, He also mentioned that he was concerned for young talent to be signed to the Daily Wire, considering that he saw this non-binding term sheet. But I gotta say this, right? If you're someone like Brett Cooper, who is the younger talent acquisition, who basically had nothing to her name, and then she gets signed to this big company, and she gets her own show, and she gets a steady flow of income, and she gets surrounded by these big business executives, and sure, maybe she'll get a bad payday of a six-figure cut, but that's still six figures. That's over $100,000 for a young person.
Yeah.
Right. I don't understand his point here. This is and by the way, um Crowder eventually later on he called Jeremy after let me give you some context. So basically, Boring, he gave this contract or this non-binding term sheet to Crowder somewhere in October or late fall, somewhere in that range.
Mhm.
Or I don't think that's late fall. I think that's early fall or mid fall. Whatever. You get it. In fall. He gave this term sheet. And then a few months pass around in December, Crowder calls Jeremy Boring and voices his concerns about the agreement after they said they would go their separate ways. So out of the blue in December,
Mhm.
he called him. He was like, "Bro, this non-binding term sheet makes me sick to my stomach.
But
I need you to let."
how? It's like this is just such nitpicking because again, not only did the non-binding term sheet I would say exist within the realm of this is negotiable, this is something we can talk about, this is something that we can work out, right? But even more than that, it's like not only did you disagree with it, it made you sick. Even when the guy who made it, even when the negotiator from the Daily Wire said, "Hey, we can tweak this. It was just a work in progress. I'm willing to make it, better for your side if you want. We can talk about this." Like, why the repulsion? Why the drama?
Yeah, man. I mean, 50 million is 50 million. I just gotta mention that. But
He offered
maybe that's
75. He
well.
offered 75 million.
To be fair, Boring said he was willing to go up to 75 million. He started at 50, so presumably
Okay,
during
okay.
negotiations, right, they would slowly get closer and closer to an agreed upon price. But if that price exceeded 75 million, Boring would pull out. So I just gotta make that clear. Um,
But that's still really good.
it's amazing. Let's be honest here. And Crowder, in this recorded conversation with Jeremy Boring, which by the way he had no knowledge of, in December, he recorded a part where Jeremy Boring said that young talent would have to be wage slaves. Now, I have
What?
I have a question about the context of their conversation, right? Because after I heard this clip, it looked like Jeremy Boring was chuckling. Maybe because of the humor involved, of Crowder saying, 50 million is not enough, right? Imagine Crowder saying, "Okay, you offered me 50 million. That's really bad. I can't imagine how you treat your young talent." And then Jeremy Boring is like, "Ha ha ha. Yeah, we have to put these young talent to wage slaves, right?"
Yeah.
As like a funny, ironic thing. So
Yeah.
there could be some missing context here. Even so,
I mean, it does kind of seem like incredibly cartoonishly villainous, which is both very funny unintentionally and intentionally.
yeah,
Like what is the likelihood that he was being serious versus was just cracking a joke at Crowder kind of being a little unreasonable with this whole situation? Or at the very
correct.
least, not willing to, hear the guy out. Because again, like they didn't just say 50 million final offer. They said we'll talk about this. We can go anywhere between 50 and 75. That's good. And he also said 50 or 75 for fewer episodes with fewer ad breaks with everything that he was demanding, he got concessions for, and he's still spitting mad? Like, what?
Now this is where the questions arise with Steven Crowder because look, you could think that the contract that Daily Wire offered to Crowder it was unreasonable, even though I think that's kind of a bad take. But you can still think that, right? I'm not going to
Benefit of the
control what you
doubt.
think.
Benefit of the doubt. Sure. Why not?
right? But at the end of the day, the Daily Wire is a company. They got massive overhead costs that they need to pay. So when they
Right.
make a contract like this or a non-binding term sheet, you got to understand the context of the situation.
It's done with the company's best interest in mind first, because if they didn't, they'd go under and they wouldn't be able to pay anybody. Again, Econ
Now,
101.
right. So what I have questions about Crowder's pure intentions because right after he made his first video, he actually revealed a site called stopbigcom.com, which is kind of like a weird name, but essentially this website outlines how you should join the resistance with him
Oh
to
my god!
fight these big conservative media
No
organizations that don't
way.
have your best interest. Now, I have a question about this because Timcast actually revealed that this website was registered on the 12th of December 2022. Now, Crowder announced a split from the Blaze on the 18th of December,
Oh
and
shit.
we know Crowder called boring in December.
You don't think. Oh, no.
So it looks like that Crowder
He
was trying to
didn't.
make
He didn't plan this controversy from the beginning, knowing that any deal that they presented to him, he would just call unreasonable and find a way to stage it as like there being a sort of a collusion against independent conservative media pundits. You wouldn't do that, right? He's Steven
yeah.
Crowder. Why would he do that?
Look, I'm not saying he did that, but the timing looks weird, and in my opinion, like this is just so simple to me. Why do you have this type of criticism over a company that is doing net positive for the conservative movement? I mean, let's be honest here. The Daily Wire is an important aspect of conservative media, and for him
Hmm.
to say these type of things
But
and
perhaps it was never about the conservative media. Maybe it was never about alt tech. Maybe it was never about pushing back against leftism. Maybe it was just about himself. Which, again, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but the way that he's going about it is incredibly manipulative and shady, I think.
yeah, so and by the way, right, we have all the incentive to agree with Crowder because his stopbigcom.com, his website, whatever, it's also becoming a media organization that's going to compete with the Daily Wire. So he's going to sign young talent. So we have better, we align better with Crowder because the stuff we say online, obviously not advertiser friendly. Even if we get to that point,
Oh, absolutely. As soon as we get monetized, you can bet that we're going to be talking about all the times that YouTube, throws us into the bus or gets our shit taken down, or that we can't make money on it because we said too many things that they don't like. Fundamentally, I think that Crowder's message that there should be more competition and more platforms for independent conservative or Republican or, not leftist creators, I think that's actually solid. The problem is that he's not making that kind of organization um out of a genuine place. Even if he genuinely thinks that he's being screwed over here by the Daily Wire, which is possible. We have to admit that that's a possibility. Even if we do genuinely think that he's being screwed over, he's using this personal conflict, and he's turning it into a bigger picture, sort of, scandal, and basically making a fracture within, the online right by turning one talking head against another talking head and trying to create more reasons to infight. Which, by the way, we cannot start that shit because it's one of the only things holding the leftists back from basically just consuming all of our culture, even though they already have for the most part. But it would be way worse if, like, the tankies and the ancoms and the moderate the Democrats and the Biden bros and the Bernie bros, like, if all of those groups were working together all the time, oh my god, we would be so screwed. Because they already have so much like social, cultural, and even you could even say governmental capital. It would just be so much worse if they weren't constantly tearing at each other's throats over the littlest shit. The right cannot start doing that.
Yeah, like, look, I'll mention this really quickly. I think that in all likelihood, or let me mention this, right? I want to mention, we don't have incentive to go against Crowder's
Right.
his media brand or
If
whatever, because
anything, we have incentive to support him.
right, because our values, or maybe not our values, but with what we say online, it aligns more with Crowder's model, right?
Yeah.
If we ever get an offer from the Daily Wire, I mean, let's be honest, it probably would never work
Yeah.
because we don't like to really censor ourselves on this podcast. We like to make edgy jokes,
That and also,
and
let's be real, there's no way that's happening. Like, even if we
and
blow up, come on now.
yeah,
Like,
and we probably won't upload 4 episodes a week. I mean,
yeah.
I'm just
What do
being
you, I
honest with
see us. I
myself.
see us doing that. I see us doing it.
we,
I
we
mean,
can
we're
barely
probably
we
could.
can barely
50
manage one
no,
episode
no,
every
think
2
about it.
weeks.
You guys saying for 50 mil, you guys wouldn't be able to do that?
No, I
Uh,
would. But the problem is with the situation, I don't think we'd be offered 50 million. I'm just saying,
No,
as
we're
young
big, bro.
talent,
What if we start going to colleges and stuff? And be like, hey, like change my mind, or like, hey,
change
prove
our
that I'm
mind.
wrong,
I actually
Prove them
wouldn't
wrong.
hate
or
that.
no, prove me wrong, prove me wrong. We
Prove
can
me
start that.
wrong.
Prove me wrong.
Prove me wrong. You're gay,
Isn't that literally just the Crowder thing, though?
but
Nah, but
backwards.
it's like prove me wrong. It's different.
uh, hey, all of you lefties out there, you really want to hold creators accountable, right? That's your thing. It's accountability culture, right? So
Mhm.
how about you hold the Sons of Liberty accountable and make sure we never do that shit ever?
No, we're gonna do it. All right, X is doing it. We're doing
Look,
it next week. Actually, I already planned it. Don't worry, I got the
my
permits.
my point is, if we want to make sure that if we even have a chance to enter a situation where we might get a good distribution company, we would most likely align ourselves with Crowder. We
Probably,
wouldn't align ourselves with the Daily Wire.
yeah.
But
Even
I
though
do.
maybe one of our co-hosts is maybe a little bit too obsessed with Ben Shapiro.
No, but hear me out, right? What if we're in the Daily Wire shoes? What if we become the distribution company? You know, what if we become that company? We
Oh my
would have to
god.
make profit somehow, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you gotta think of it. Like, I
The other
personally
thing,
side with the
yeah.
Daily Wire throughout hearing your guys' conversation. You know,
Really?
because realistically, that deal seems fair to me.
Oh, yeah, no. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, I got it mixed up. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, honestly, I don't even know if I really side with either. I think that Crowder was the one being unreasonable, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's his prerogative to do this. I don't think he's
Yeah.
actually done anything particularly wrong. It's just sketchy, you know?
I mean, it is sketchy because he's like, the money doesn't matter to him, but obviously it does.
Yeah, I know that is very
That is
obviously cap.
very sketchy. The only contracts that they know about, like a lot, is NFL contracts. And I get it. You're trying to get the most money out of the company, and you're trying to get your worth, your ideal worth, what you think you're worth. But like 50 to 75 million, that's a lot. Like that's really really
And the biggest
reasonable.
thing is, yeah, that's the Daily Wire's offer. It's not even like that's what Crowder's saying, and the Daily Wire's like, nah. That
Yeah, like I'm curious, what number is going on in his head? Thinking, oh yeah, I'm like two
he
hundred
said he
million at
wanted.
least.
yeah,
He said
watch it be a 9-digit number.
he said he wanted 120 million, or well, not
Oh,
he said,
called
but
it.
the Jeremy Boring said that Crowder requested 120
Bro,
million.
that's like nah, that's too much. Patrick
That's
Holmes don't even get that in a
bro.
year.
That's no in 4 years, but that's
Or
more. That's more revenue than the Daily Wire actually got in the year of 2021. So I don't see
how
how
does
that's
he know?
possible.
Nah, he doesn't deserve. He's like, all right. To be
No,
honest, I don't
it
really
doesn't
watch him
matter
that
what
much.
people
I don't think he's
deserve.
worth that much.
I
I really
mean,
don't think he's worth 100 over 100. I think 80 is the max in my opinion. I
eh,
see his worth.
I don't
His
know.
company's worth.
To me, I don't really see it like there's an objective worth. I think it should be a process of negotiation and, a sort of push and pull between what both groups think each other are worth. This whole situation has just proved to me that, maybe it is staged, and if it is staged, then Crowder was never interested in this in the first place. He just wanted another reason to stay popular and relevant. And to an extent, more power to him. Like get his bag, whatever he's got to do. But on the other hand, the thing with maybe he actually did want a deal and he thought that he was getting ripped off, then that's just him having very high standards for himself. And that's not inherently wrong. He just has to find a company or make a company that matches those ideals. And that's what he's doing. So again, I don't really think there's anybody that's in the wrong morally. But I do think that Crowder is being possibly unreasonable, or at the very least, just kind of unreasonable is the word. He is not open to negotiation or reason, I think.
I mean, yeah, let's be honest, it doesn't even matter if he's open to negotiation. If he already knew that he thought he was worth 120 million, they were offering 50 million, and he saw from the get-go this is not going to work, he could just leave it at that. There is no reason for him to go on this campaign dragging the Daily Wire's name through the mud. There is no reason. Offers like this probably come to him every day. And realistically, I mean, it is what it is. He should have just moved on. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely did drag this on, and the lasting impacts that this could have on, the online right, that is kind of scary. So yeah, I do kind of wish maybe he didn't do that, but whatever.
Yeah, and I think, by the way, I think the Daily Wire is actually getting more heat than Crowder is getting, which is kind of weird.
That's kind of whack.
Crowder has
no one really has. No, see, I don't like Crowder fans. They're too, in my opinion, radical.
Really?
Yeah, because the Crowder fans I've interacted with, they're like, if you think I'm homophobic, you think I'm misogynistic, they are way more.
I've always kind of seen it as Crowder was actually fairly moderate.
Really?
Yeah.
See,
like with his Change His Mind series, he was a little bit of a stickler on some of the gender stuff, but they seemed to be fairly general conservative opinions. Maybe I'm off base on that. I don't know.
See, I actually don't know because I don't watch enough of Crowder, but
perhaps he has radicalized over time. I don't know. Because I haven't seen a lot of his new stuff. I'm not gonna lie. To me, I kind of felt like Crowder kind of fell off, and maybe that's why he's doing all this shit.
That does make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the last chance he has for publicity. It is a weird situation, and I think this is only going to cause more harm.
Yeah.
Overall,
but
if you if you want your cause to be spread, you should not do this. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the other thing to consider is that I am a little bit skeptical about how genuine his his speech about wanting to help independent conservative creators is, because something tells me he's the kind of person to host this platform and then do the exact same shit or worse that the Daily Wire was doing. But it'll be different because he's the one doing it.
You worry about leaving a better planet for our kids. How about leaving better kids for our planet? Entire generation offended at everything, getting mad that a human thinks all lives matter. We don't need black or white or left or right. What we need is common sense. We need balance. We're all in the same boat. Why you trying to make holes? If they sink, we sink. This is madness.